back to Wonderland TCG. My name is Neko Wonderland, and today I'm going to be bringing you another deck tech video, going over one of my personal lists, Prosper Tome-Bound. So Prosper is a Rakdos commander that costs a black, a red, and 2 colorless mana. It's a 1/4 creature with Death Touch that has the ability, at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. And then its other effect is whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. So 2 abilities that really synergize with one another and get you both card advantage and mana acceleration. The idea with this deck is you want to kind of make the most use of that ability to assemble win cons and get quick mana. And Prosper can be versatile in that. There are kind of 2 ways you can play the deck, and you can pivot between them as necessary. Could be a really fast turbo deck. Prosper's in great colors, being in Rakdos, to get those early ad nauseams. But Prosper himself allows for a much more grindy mid-game potential. And in my personal list, I kind of prefer the mid-range playstyle with having the backup option of turboing if possible. I just think the meta right now is much more mid-range and creature focused, so I took that into consideration when constructing this current version of the list that I play, and I've had good results sitting back and going for the win when I find my window instead of trying to jam an early win turbo style. The other thing I want to touch on with Prosper is the fact that he is a 1/4 with Death Touch, which means he is a great blocker. Not only can he survive your opponent's attacks, Death Touch means that he can kill whatever they swing into you. So that means people will be less likely to want to attack you, and you will be able to keep a healthier life total, which is great for things like your Bolas's Citadel and your ad nauseum plans. So like I mentioned, this is kind of a mid-range build, and I have a lot of pieces that I'm going to go over with that, but I do want to start with some of the main win cons of the deck. So the first one right away is the Dualcaster Mage combo. So this one works by having a creature on field and casting the Twin Flame. Once Twin Flame is on the stack, you hold priority and flash in the Dualcaster Mage. With the Dualcaster ETB, you target the Twin Flame, and the outcome of this is you have essentially infinite hasty Dualcaster Mage tokens that you can swing into your opponents for lethal. Another combo of the deck uses cards like Dockside Extortionist, Cloudstone Curio, and an Outlet. And the idea here is that you can continually recast Dockside and then generate infinite mana. For outlets, you have cards like Mayhem Devil, which you can sacrifice the treasures to ping 1. You have Orcish Bowmasters, which has a relevant ETB that whenever it enters, it deals 1 to an opponent. A Professional Facebreaker, you can sack the treasures to exile the top card of your library, and then just assemble another combo that way. Magda is very similar. Infinite Treasures means that you can tutor out all your artifacts and assemble another combo, like the Bolas's Citadel. And speaking of that card, that's another main win con of the deck. You have the Bolas's Citadel, you have the Aetherflux Reservoir, and the Sensei's Divining Top. So the way this combo works is you assemble these 3 pieces, and you can essentially draw cards, put Senseis on top, keep casting Senseis from the top of your library with Bolas's Citadel, and then Aetherflux gets you more life than you use, so you can just go through your deck until you have enough life to ping all your opponents down for 50. And then there are some ways to assemble the different combos. Breach, of course, is a great way to do it. You can use things like Breach, Grinding Station, LED to kind of mill through your library until you can assemble a combo. One way you can find a win with that is finding a card like Praetor's Grasp and taking an opponent's Thassa's Oracle. Another way to assemble the combo is with a card like Doomsday. So Doomsday will allow you to put 5 cards on top, and then Prosper is great because Prosper will let you exile a card at your end step to crack the pile. So the pile you kind of want to make with this deck is Dualcaster Mage, Twin Flame, you want Final Fortune, Jessica's Will, and then the last card can be whatever you need. A land if you need extra mana, but preferably you find something like Protection, like Red Elemental Blast or Deflecting Swap. And how you assemble that pile is you want Twin Flame on top, and then you want Jessica's Will as a second card from the top, and then the other 3 can be in whatever order you'd like. On the end step, reveal Twin Flame with Prosper, and then you can cast it still in the end step. You get an extra turn, you draw Jessica's Will for turn, you cast Jessica's Will, and then you reveal the other 3 cards, and then you have the protected Dualcaster Mage win. And then you can kind of make other piles as necessary. Again, Praetor's Grasp can be a good backup if you ever want to just steal a card from an opponent's deck to get you the win, looking at that Thassa's Oracle option. Another way you can kind of assemble a win are with cards like Ad Nauseam and Peer into the Abyss. Both draw you a significant number of cards, or if not draw, put them into your hand. Looking at Ad Nauseam, so I do want to highlight what I said before, that this is a very mid-range focused list. And as such, you are running higher CMC cards. So it's not necessarily tuned to be a main phase Ad Naus list. You can do it, and you still can get there, but it feels best when you Ad Naus on the end step. Pier, I know people are kind of hot or cold on Pier right now. I still like the card. Alright, now looking more at the different categories of the deck, with the Planeswalkers first. Karn's the only one that I'm running right now. And the reason I run Karn is not only is it a good stacks piece, it turns off your opponent's artifacts, stops their dock side, helps you remove their problematic artifacts, but it also lets you have recursion. So when you exile a card off Prosper, you may not be able to cast it for whatever reason. So if you exile a combo piece like Sensei's Divining Top, Karn allows you to be able to put it to hand and get it back for a later attempt. So a good backup, a good cushion, and that way it doesn't feel as bad exiling a necessary piece down the road. For creatures, again, we highlighted the kind of combo pieces already. Professional Facebreaker can get you some real good advantage. And again, you have Prosper, right? So you crack a treasure, reveal a card, and then you can cast a card, and then Prosper gets you more treasure. So you can kind of do silly things like that. There are even ways with Professional to combo with cards like Sensei's Divining Top and something like Bergy. Grim Hireling, you make so many treasures, so this can allow you to remove problematic stacks pieces. Dragon's Rage, good for filtering. If there are cards you don't want on the top of your deck that you're going to reveal with Prosper, you can just put them into your graveyard. Great for fueling your breach lines. Ragavan, again, great synergy with our commander. Gets you a treasure and lets you play things from exile, so you get even more mana. Opposition Agent and Bowmasters, great hate bears. Magus of the Moon, I think these effects are just backbreaking right now because people aren't running basic lands. Valky can be a good piece because it can be played early to see if any players have something like a Drannith Magistrate, and basically remove that from their hand, so you can play out your Prosper and still do your game plan. And then later game, you can do something with Tybalt and just have a really strong piece that lets you exile your opponent's stuff, and then you can cast it, and again, getting mana off of Prosper. So just a lot of synergy around that ability. Wandering Archaic. Wandering is really good because you aren't playing blue. So this is a great way to protect your wins. It lets you copy your opponent's counter magic. Plus, you can get some good value off other spells. And it kind of stops your opponents from storming off, essentially. Because everything that they cast, you get a copy of. Player has 5 mana for Ad Nauseam. Well, all of a sudden you have Ad Nauseam, and yours resolves first. So, a lot of silly things go with that. Doffy, great as a hate bear for the graveyards, great for having a good piece you can use at a later date. Braids is kind of cracked in this list. Braids will be able to let you sacrifice your treasures, and then your opponents probably aren't going to want to sacrifice your artifacts, so you'll draw a bunch of cards. I think the best card, or at least the one that I like the most in the deck, creature-wise, is Bergie. Bergie does so much for you, and both sides of her are relevant for this deck. You can kind of storm off with things like Breach or Sensei Stop, and have the front side of Bergie be really relevant to let you get that mana to keep going. The backside, you can discard cards, and then you get to play things from exile. Prosper loves that. Zorn, I think, is a card people have cut from Prosper in a lot of decks like this. The reason I still have it is because I think, again, the mid-range plan, this is a card that can really help you, because an extra treasure doesn't seem like much, but if you let it build up over time, especially when you can keep playing things from exile with Prosper, it has and will keep doing silly things that I love. It just gets me so much value. Looking at the sorceries, again, the pieces to interact with Prosper, right? Jessica's Will, Light Up the Stage, Reckless Impulse, all great ways to use your commander's ability. Gamble, Demonic Tutor, Grim Tutor, just your standard tutor package. This is a list I have in paper. The one thing to keep in mind is I don't have every card available to me. So because of that, I don't have an Imperial Seal right now. You could definitely add that if you like. That can be really good with Prosper because you don't have to wait a turn or wait a turn cycle to draw the card. You can just get it at your end step and have it be there for you to use whenever you like. Besides that, some removal pieces. Feed the Swarm, really good. This can get rid of both a creature as well as enchantments. So Rule of Laws are not as popular as they were, but they still pop up. So this can get rid of those kind of stacks effects. The only downside is that it is sorcery, so you can't use it in response to a breach. Toxic Deluge is really good. You can pay 3 life into, still keep your commander around, and remove a lot of the hate pieces that are in the format currently. Instance, so you have your ramp, you have other advantage with March of Reckless Joy. Again, a lot of removal. Delayed Blast, Fireball, a Braid, Elemental Blast, Tybalt's Trickery, Fire Covenant, Cut Down. Just a lot of ways to remove the pieces that are stopping you from winning. And you have so many that you can sit back and just wait until you find one, because it will happen. And you have multiple ways to keep doing it if the game goes long. The rituals are good both for ramping into cards like Ad Nauseam or getting an early Prosper. Rakdos Charm. Rakdos Charm is, if you're looking for a card to cut, this would probably be the one to do it right now. I like what this card could offer, but I've never seen it really be put into effect the way I like. So ideally, right, you could stop an opponent's breach win by exiling their graveyard. And then if anyone ever makes infinite tokens or has like a wide board like something like Najila could have, you could play this and hopefully deal enough damage to kill them. So I like the idea of it. I like what it can do, and that's why I keep it in the deck. But definitely a card that you could cut. Artifacts kind of highlighted the packages for a lot of ramp pieces. Just getting that mana down. Really good to hit these off Prosper. Wishclaw, of course, is really good. Yeah, pretty standard there. Again, you can include a Mox Diamond if you have one. I don't, but we can also look at the enchantments. Only real enchantment you run in this deck, at least my version, is Underworld Breach. That's the only one I've ever found myself needing. And Breach is almost seen as like a recursion piece in this deck. You don't have Brain Freeze, you don't have Intuition, so your Breach lines aren't as clean. So this is more of a piece to help you assemble a win in other ways through things like the grinding station. So don't be afraid to have those value breaches if it ever comes up. Pretty standard land package, running the new Mount Tomb, gonna see how that feels. Things like Homeward Path, that way you can make sure that you keep your Prosper around. Emergence Zone, being able to do things at instant speed right now, I think is just crazy. Being able to present a win over someone else's is too strong to overlook, in my opinion. Lands are also kind of good with Prosper. You hit them off the top, and all of a sudden you get 2 mana for them. And yeah, that kind of goes over everything in the list. I'll include the link down below. And with this deck, I like to grind value. I like to sit back, use Prosper, get so much mana, get so much advantage that it becomes impossible to stop me, as opposed to me trying to ramp something out like a Doomsday and being blown out by it. Because Doomsday, really good combo. Great that Prosper can crack it. I've been silenced so many times on my extra turns with Final Fortune, so having the ability to assemble wins in other ways is really good. And again, good colors to turbo when you need to, when you want to. You could keep a turn 2 Adnaz in this deck and feel happy about that. Besides that, looking at what Prosper likes to do, at least in this build, I like to prioritize the turn 1 or turn 2 Prosper, getting it down as early as you can, and then just getting the value from there. This deck is, of course, hurt by Drannith Magistrate a lot. If your opponents have a Drannith out and you have Prosper, you are going to keep exiling spells and lands. The good thing is, if you exile a land, you can still play it, but there will be times where you just keep losing piece after piece, which feels bad, but again, so much removal, you're going to be able to remove the Dranniths no problem. It may take a little time, which is why I think the mid-range works better. You can play under the stacks until you're ready to go off. Yeah, I think Prosper is just a really fun deck. I love playing this deck. It's not the strongest deck, it's not S tier or even A tier, but I would say it's a solid B tier. So try the deck out, see what you think, and let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching.